50 Cent signed with Bellator. I know what you're thinking and everybody else is thinking is to fight, which is what they've led us to believe. But they haven't actually said that. He
called out Rampage.
He called out Rampage. I get where that's fun and funny and spoof and newsworthy, and I totally jumping the shark, but I get it. No committee. I mean, I could go into all the reasons that will not happen. He signed with Bellator. That part is true. What did he sign to do, right? If anybody signs with Bellator, go, oh, he's going to fight for Bellator. Well, they have all sorts of contracts out there, right? Trace Atkins was signed with Bellator, just to offer you an example. And then he sang the national anthem just recently. You're in a real catch-22 if you're Rampage there, right? 50 Cent is going to attach his name and whatever attention he can get to somebody. It would be foolish for that somebody to dismiss it instead of ride the wave, even though you're going to make yourself look a little bit foolish because the level of ridiculousness and absurdity is just glaring you in the face. And if you pull any kind of a stunt and it turns out to be just that, which this obviously would be, it makes it a little harder for you to pull a stunt in the future. So what do you do if you're Rampage? Do you take the guy with 8 million social media followers that's brought you into his social media scam? Yeah, you probably do. It's not a great long-term play. Sometimes you got to just live for the moment. So there wasn't a whole lot that Rampage could do there. 50 Cent is notoriously bad at these things. And he jumps the shark, overvalues his own worth, and is a major checkers player, not chess. He has a history of doing that. He wanted to get into the promotion of boxing. He and Floyd Mayweather were best friends in real life, aside from the cameras. So 50 Cent hatches a plan that to get his boxing model off the ground, he's going to publicly end his friendship with Floyd Mayweather, right? Where they're like sitting side by side in Floyd's living room, telling the whole world that they hate each other and laughing and giggling and eating brownies or whatever it is they're doing, okay? It was so obvious that he was doing that, though, and it was such a checkers move. It was unlike what Vince McMahon would do, where he's a year ahead and he knows exactly where he's going to go, and if there's a fork in the road over here because of human psychology and we get this wrong, then this is the path we'll take, but if we do have this right, then this is the path we'll take. He didn't have X, Y, and Z laid out. He just lived for the moment to giggle with Floyd in 140 characters or less and build up a little bit of attention with no real plan. So 50 has a history of doing this, and he thinks that he understands professional wrestling, which if you ever invoke the I understand professional wrestling model, if you ever invoke that line, what you're really saying is I understand human psychology, because that's all the business, the industry of professional wrestling is, and very few do. Very few do understand it. And 50 Cent has a history of proving he doesn't get it. Just get up there and sing and sell some tickets and move on for the next one. That is your place in life. Trying to get out of your lane and trying to come into some kind of form of combat is something you think that you're the smartest guy in the room, but you are so clearly not. And when you go out and you do these things with no real plan, what was the plan going to be when you and Floyd end your friendship? And I can answer that for you. What his plan was, but I mean, you'd come up with this in about 3 minutes. It just wasn't a good one. What his plan was is to build a beef with Floyd and then go, look, I can't come in and fight you, but you and I have a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a substitute. I'm going to pick a guy. As a matter of fact, I'm going to pick the Cuban, and he actually picked a Cuban boxer whose name I can't produce for you. I think it was like Vivian Lopez. I'm going to pick Lopez, the very guy that you've ducked for the last 4 years and told me in our private conversations that's the one guy that you don't want. All the while asking Floyd, hey, who do you want to fight? You want to fight that Lopez guy? Yeah, he sucks, doesn't he? Okay, let's go pretend like he's really good and you've been ducking him. And he comes back like he's working us. It's like, no, man, you're just not very smart, 50. You got a good voice. You even got a good little look. Go out there and entertain. But that's your lane. You're not the smartest guy in the room, which is fine until you try to pretend you are. Then you're going to have somebody like me come in and rip it up like an onion, layer by layer, and tell you all the mistakes you made and all the things that you thought were going to happen, because I do understand human psychology and you don't, and I'm going to give you your own psychology. First thing, hire new writers. Second thing, you dissect what good lines are. Get the ideas to come in. He's very good at identifying what works and what doesn't. He does do that from his rap career. That's true. So bring in outside help. Get a room full of workers on NDAs who you can trust. Keep the secret in the room, and then go from there. Quit trying to think, 50. It's not good for you. Quit trying to think. You called out Rampage, which no commission in the world would do. You didn't leak any training footage. You have no backstories. You didn't get 5 or 6 guys to come vouch for you, which at least did happen. Remember when CM Punk was coming forward? That at least did happen. You offered us absolutely no backstory. So now, yes, we do get a little kick out of reading this in the very short term. But if you're looking for a long-term play, like a chess player, you've just got to have a little bit more substance. And calling out Rampage is silly. Dana gets to have a little fun every now and then, right? I mean, we've talked about that. What was the box of James Toney that come in? Every now and then, we're going to go do something silly to have some fun. Coker's guilty of it too. Dot off 5,000 and the Kimbo thing that ended up working out, quite frankly. So maybe there's some room to 50. But when you're jammed up in those spots, okay, 50 does not want to fight. Let's make believe that 50 wants to fight, that he's in the room training and used to wrestle a little bit in high school and boxed a little bit growing up and he's going to go get himself in shape. Whatever the story is, let's make believe that one exists. The best thing to do instead of jumping the shark like 50 always does because he's a dum-dum, instead of doing that and going after a former world champion in Rampage Jackson who no commission would ever sign off for you to fight, period. Do a shoot. Come out and say, I got very limited experience, but I want to do this. I know another guy with very limited experience named Floyd Mayweather, and he's been running his yaps, and he and I got this personal beef because that's what they tried to lead the world to believe anyway, right? And as much as I know they're in the kitchen eating junk food and typing this out for one another and hitting sends on each other's phones and thinking that's cute and fun before they roll the sleeping bags up and have a slumber party that night. Before that all happens, that's the angle he should go. If they're looking for a cash grab and you want to find something that's compelling, celebrity boxing has proven to work. Floyd Mayweather fighting has proven to work. All of a sudden, you make it an MMA background. Floyd with no training. If we did have a little backstory of 50 Cent, maybe he has that in his past. I don't even know his real name. So, do you know his real name?
No.
All right.
I can look it up in 2 seconds.
Yeah, but the point is, what if he did used to be on the such and such wrestling team, and we actually had some photos of that we could provide for the fans and go, well, he does have a wrestling background. Yeah, he wasn't great at it, but he did have it, and he looks like he's a fit guy. I mean, he's either lifted weights or done some boxing. He's done something. So let's get those photos together, start to tell a story. But now all of a sudden you can compel fans to go, okay, wait a minute. I know this is silly and I know it's ridiculous, but you're telling me that Floyd Mayweather and 50 Cent are going to fight because 50 Cent's a lot bigger than, I hear people do this all the time. He's a lot bigger than, you ever seen him with his shirt off? Boy, I think he could bench press about 200 pounds. I hear people do that all the time.
It's a joke.
So if you could dumb yourself down to the level that your average buyer is going to turn to, 50 was even shot 5 or 6 times. He must be a tough guy. And who's got more tattoos than the other one? I mean, the way the world works is such a compelling place when you're trying to identify who the tougher guy is without actually having them fight. A shoot would have been a lot better by 50, and if he was smart like he thinks he is, he would have known that. As opposed to a work where, yes, he will get a week's worth of attention and headlines from Rampage. Sure he will. But a week's like that. Why not put a better plan together and get 90 days of a headline? Why not do something like that? And then you could be a worker with a wrestling mentality instead of just a dum-dum that made a bunch of money selling rap. Right? And it's not an insult to 50. I'm digressing the specific situation. 50 has a history of jumping the shark, and he didn't need to do that. He had a picture that came out of him in a room with Coker. He then did sign a contract with Bellator. If he wasn't so greedy from a narcissistic standpoint of wanting attention, and that's what it is. I'm not against 50. It sounds like I'm very against 50. I'm actually very curious what's going on over here. You're probably misinterpreting me here. But just to break down this one point. If he wasn't a narcissist that needed immediate gratification, he would have let that picture of him in a room with a contract and a pen in his hand and Scott Coker at the table circulate, build a speculation, and he would not have come in on the back of that until those headlines started to die down. Then you come in with phase 2 and you reclaim the top spot of the headline. Then you let that die down. Then you come in with the Rampage or whatever angle you want to go. You squeeze it as tight as you can. Even a good comedian on stage is not going to deliver a joke, get a big laugh from the audience, and then start telling his next joke while the audience is still laughing. He waits for it to die down. He soaks it all in, and then he begins the next bit. 50 was on top of the headlines with the speculation of what were they doing in the room at the table with Scott Coker, the most powerful man in Bellator, and a pen in his hand and a contract in front of him. And instead of letting that run, he jumped the shark like he always does and went after Rampage. It was a sucker's move done by a sucker.